Hey everyone, welcome to Sidetrack Adventures. This is Steve. Right now I'm in the middle of the Mojave Desert in California, and we're heading to a place called Giant Rock, which is, as we'll see, very appropriately named. I mean, the people who came up with the name for this place were not very creative in naming it. Now, I would probably go out there if it was just a very large rock, but this place, the story to it, is much more than that. It involves a hermit, someone being blown up by the FBI, a visitation by aliens from Venus, and a time travel machine. So let's get in the car and go visit Giant Rock. We are kind of taking the desert back roads from the Joshua Tree 29 Palms area right now. Giant Rock is located outside of the small town of Landers, California. The last few miles of the drive is on this dirt road, but so far it's very well maintained, and I'm fairly certain pretty much any car would have no problem driving this. Maybe I spoke too soon. We just came across this fairly new car upside down out here. It's not unusual to come across old cars in the middle of nowhere, but you don't usually see a new one. Probably someone ditching it to scam their insurance or something. It looks like it's been stripped pretty good. Let's take a look around it. There better not be a body in here. Yeah, the whole inside has been stripped as well, and thankfully no body. Well, if anyone's missing a Dodge Charger or needs some parts, there you go. And here is Giant Rock. Giant Rock is supposedly the largest freestanding boulder in North America, and maybe the world. I'm not sure the camera accurately shows just how big it is, but it is huge. When you see people or cars next to it, you can really get a sense of its size. Beyond it being just a huge boulder, though, it has a pretty interesting history. Native Americans of the area had long considered the rock to be a sacred place, and was said to be a place that different tribes would meet. In the early 1930s, a man named Frank Critzer, who was in the German Navy during World War I and then later worked as a merchant marine, moved out here and began to dig under the rock to live. Kind of like a desert tortoise, basically. Eventually, he dug out a 400 square foot room under the rock. Being under the rock, the room remained cool in the summer when temperatures can easily get 120 degrees out here, and warm in the winter when it can be freezing out. As part of Critzer's house under the rock, he also had a radio with an antenna placed on top of the boulder. Frank also cleared out an area for airplanes to land. Critzer was a naturalized US citizen, but when World War II started, having a German name and a large radio antenna on his rock raised suspicions with the authorities. He also failed to register for the draft. One day in 1942, 3 agents paid him a visit and wanted to take him in for questioning. There was a lot of arguing, and eventually Frank went under the rock and shut the door. This led one of the agents to toss a smoke grenade into the room, where unbeknownst to them, Frank had a lot of dynamite stored. The resulting explosion killed Frank Critzer, destroyed the room, and injured the 3 agents. Then, the story really only gets weirder from here. This huge piece of the rock broke off about 20 years ago. I'm not sure if all the years of people having campfires under the rock, or, dynamite explosions helped cause this, or if it was just time. In 1945, after World War II ended, a man named George Van Tassel, who had been a friend of Frank Critzer's, submitted an application to the Bureau of Land Management to acquire the property to build an airport. The paperwork was approved in 1947, and Van Tassel took over the property. Van Tassel and his family would move into the room under the rock, where they would also host meditation sessions. According to Van Tassel, he was awoken one night by an alien from the planet Venus, who took him aboard their spaceship, where the Venusian leader, named Solganda, both verbally and telepathically gave him a technique for time travel that would rejuvenate the human body. In 1954, he began building what he called the Integratron to perform the rejuvenation. But we'll come back to that in just a little bit. With aliens already visiting, they needed a great place to land, so the airport here became kind of a spaceport, where UFOs were encouraged to land, with a cafe, a small store, a gas station, and a guest house being added to the property. I'm not sure if any UFOs ever came back, but from 1953 to 1978, they did hold an annual UFO convention here. The 1959 convention had 10,000 attendees. Let's take a look at what's left of the room under the rock. It's been mostly filled in, but you could definitely make out where the room once was. Imagine a 7-story tall boulder as your roof. All of the buildings Van Tassel built out here are long gone, but right next to Giant Rock, you can still find the foundation for the cafe. I read somewhere that Howard Hughes would occasionally fly into this airport, get a hot dog at this cafe, and have a chat with Van Tassel. But I don't know how accurate that is. It does sound like something that Howard Hughes might do, but I don't think there's any actual proof of that. But there's the airfield right over there. So that's the Giant Rock. But to continue the story, let's head back to town and check out Van Tassel's time-traveling healing machine, the Integratron. And here's the Integratron, not too far from Giant Rock. Van Tassel began building this with his brother Jack, and the structure is made out of 16 spines held together by concrete. Supposedly the building was made using the plans the aliens from Venus gave Van Tassel, and is also said to be built on a vortex of energy. It was said the Integratron could recharge the energy in living cells to bring about a longer life. Time travel factored into this as well, but I'm not exactly sure how. Unfortunately, the Venusians haven't visited me yet to explain. Van Tassel died of a heart attack in 1978, and he didn't leave instructions on how the Integratron worked, or what had to be done next, so the project was abandoned. At that time, Giant Rock returned to Bureau of Land Management control as well. The Integratron is now owned by 3 sisters, and is used for sound baths. I've never done a sound bath, but apparently they're really popular, as they were booked up weeks in advance here. They were described to me as kind of a kindergarten nap time for adults. Speaking of nap time, I wouldn't mind spending some time here in the Hammock Village. The Integratron is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, making it probably the only building designed by Venusians on the list. And of course, there is a gift shop here too. The Integratron is certainly an interesting place to visit, and it still attracts visitors from all over. So that's our look at Giant Rock and the Integratron. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and we'll see you next week.